Hello, everyone. My name is Adnan Qaiser, and we are in this lecture series discussing youth issues, some grooming points for your personal and professional development, so that you could augment and do your own capacity building as you step out of your universities and get into the professional careers. So in this series, we have been talking about the outlook, how to transform your outlook, how to come out of your complacency mode, how to improve your manners and etiquettes, and modify your behavior. Then we had discussed aspects about this uh, mindset changes, how propaganda and different issues which keep informing us, they change our mind. And then we talked about your political grievances which you have from certain institutions or from the government, because obviously you guys wish to transform this country, and it is all in our own betterment. Since we belong to this country, we belong to this land, and this is our legitimate desire to see it further prospering and see its improvement. But somehow or the other, since the fundamentals of this country could not be corrected at the time of its birth or for the past about 78 years, we are still continuing with the legacy of our independence. And we could still not um, fix or rectify its problems of which we had faced at the time of its origin in 1947. So until unless those issues are addressed, those political and economic issues are addressed, as well as there are social issues. So today we will be talking about some social issues as well, because when we are born and brought up in this country, we owe certain obligations towards this country as well, which we must understand, and we must render our duties to this country. But you have to understand this thing, that there is a social obligation as well. अब आप कहेंगे कि जी हमें इस मुल्क ने दिया क्या है, तो ऐसी बात नहीं है। इस मुल्क में आपके माँ बाप भी रहे हैं, आपके आबा व अजदाद भी रहे हैं। इस मुल्क ने हमें बहुत कुछ दिया है, और हमारी भी जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि हम इस मुल्क को कुछ रिटर्न में दें। अब आपने देखा कि मैं जब यहाँ पे आया, कनाडा से आया, तो मैं अपनी वालदा की बीमारी के सिलसिले में था। तो व्हाट हैपेंड, पीपल बिकेम वेरी क्यूरियस। उन्होंने कहा कि यार दुनिया यहाँ से कनाडा जा रही है, बाहर के मुल्क जा रही है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया यूरोप जा रही है, एंड वाई हैव यू कम बैक? तो मैंने देन आई हैड, इफ यू रिमेंबर इन द फर्स्ट लेसन, इन द फर्स्ट इंट्रोडक्टरी एपिसोड, I had mentioned the three phases of life. The first is learning, the second is earning, and the third is returning. So first we learn and then we earn from that learning, but then we have an obligation to return. This is what I am doing, and I'm not getting anything in return, right? But the point is this, that I feel an obligation towards the next generation, towards the coming generation, that whatever little I have learned has to be passed on to you guys, right? Now it is your responsibility to absorb and accept that thing wholeheartedly. I do not know if it is valuable or not, but if one person finds it valuable and corrects and amends its ways and means and his or her future life, then obviously then my purpose has been served. So returning to the community, to the next generations, is mandatory. So, since I am based in Canada, this is the first and fundamental, most important thing which is taught. I do not know if you know that when we go to Canada, we have to write a test, and we have to have an interview as well. So they ask questions, and the first and fundamental question is about your rights and responsibilities. As Canadian citizen, you have certain rights, right, which I am going to discuss. But then you owe certain responsibilities to them as well. So the same principle applies here, right? Now, for your grievances or your objections, I'm going to discuss in due course. But the point is this, that whatever our grievances or whatever our objections are, the important thing is that this is our land, this is our country, This is a place which our forefathers had created for us. This, we have to live here, right? We belong to this thing. Remember, my father used to use an idiom. He used to say, the birds of same feather flock together, right? The animals and birds, they have a flock, they have a herd, and they move around in that. So I belong to your flock, right? I may have traveled to 8 different countries in the world, but the point is this: I still belong to this flock, and I owe an obligation towards this country, right? So it's equally important for you. Just tomorrow, you may go abroad, you may go somewhere else, right? You become an international citizen, but it's equally important that you render your responsibility to this country, where you were born, where your parents were there, and you owe an obligation to them. Now, um, the point which I want to mention is that we have civic duties as well, right? So there are two different aspects of this thing. One is civic duties, and the second thing is our rights and responsibilities. So you have to differentiate between the two. So first of all, understand what are our civic duties. So civic is like it's related to the civilization or the society at large. So we have certain responsibilities, civic responsibilities, right? So because man is a social animal, man has certain social obligations. So um, all these duties which I am mentioning here may not be applicable to say this country, but you have to understand that these are generally considered to be the civic duties, like paying taxes. I had mentioned that we're not paying one tax, we are paying two different taxes, right? So serving on juries. When you are in Canada, I have been invited several times to sit on a jury when there are two different types of legal system. One, the judge or the judge in the court of law, he hears a case or a suit, and then he decides, right? He or she. But then there's a judge who directs a jury, and the jury are part of the society, the eminent members of the society. So they form, there are about 10 of them. So they sit and they listen to the argument, and then they give a decision. So the judge is directing, but the decision comes from the jury. So if the government asks you to sit on the jury, it is your civic duty to sit. Obeying laws. So every country, every state has a law of the land, which is obligatory, which is mandatory to be obeyed. Um, Now, uh, these civic responsibilities, understand that they are voluntary. They come from your own inner side, and they are ethical actions, right? You remember we talked about the ethics and values, which are part of our culture, part of our religion. So we have to follow those ethical values and contribute for the common good. Common good, the whole people around us, the population, the masses. So its origin came from ancient Rome. I wonder if you have read um, about history. So even before the Christian era, the Roman Empire was there, right? Mesopotamia and then Roman Empire, and so there a state was built. The state, like in today's era, we have nation state, we have a democratic order. So the same kind of system was there in Roman Empire. The origin dates back to the Roman era, when the democracy was introduced, and the purpose of this was to ensure the stability of the state. And as I have said, that's how the civilizations or the societies, they evolve, right? There are two different types of evolution. One is a revolution. If the society is not allowed to evolve through a steady process, then it carries out revolution. In 1789, I believe, was the French Revolution, right? And then there was a Bolshevik revolution in 1917 in Russia. So all these regulations, they upset the apple cart. They wipe off everything and they bring a new order, right? So you have to understand. So if you do not do those civic duties, then there might be some legal penalties for that. So the core civic duties, which are obligatory on you, but understand they are not binding, they are voluntary. They are like obeying laws. They amount to paying taxes, serving on the jury, as I said, defending the nation. It is not necessarily that you have become the part of the armed forces of a certain country and then you defend the nation. No. As an individual, as a civilian, you, as a member of this state, you are obligatory to defend this nation in whatever capacity you are. Then attending school is one of your civic duty. Going to the school and learning is again because you have to become a refined and able and productive citizen of this country. So this is extremely important for you to understand. Now we come to the rights and responsibilities, right? So we have certain rights when we become the citizen of this country. We have certain rights. The Constitution of a country, it provides us, it ensures our rights, and but then comes some of our responsibilities as well, which we must understand. So the rights are like right to speech. I can speak anything, but again within certain confined parameters. I have right to equality, right? Although there are social statuses, but I have equal rights to like any citizen of this country. Then legal protection and fair trial are all my rights. In exchange for these rights, the state or the country, it upholds my freedom and my well-being. Right? There are welfare states in the world, Scandinavian countries, but again, the European countries are considered to be the welfare state. But again, every country has an obligation because if it expects certain it grants certain rights to its people, then it expects certain responsibilities from them. So again, the freedom of speech, fair trial, security of life and well-being, but the responsibility comes that you will be loyal and defending the country, right? So loyalty and faithfulness is an important and mandatory aspect towards the state. Then the obedience of the law of the land is extremely important, and that's how we become a sane or a stable society or a group of people. When there are laws, there are traffic laws, there are land laws. So from our side, nobody should be harmed. So that's very important. So since all these rights are enshrined in our constitution, that book in which every right is enshrined, so some of them are a freedom, are fundamental freedoms. And fundamental freedoms, they include legal protection. Like nobody can harm you legally without any just cause. Then you have political rights. In the previous section, we talked about your political rights. You have certain rights, but again, since the political fundamentals of this country are faulty, until unless those issues, those pillars are corrected, we are continuing up, but on a wrong platform or a wrong or a faulty building. So political rights are ensured in this. The socio-economic rights. Socio is social, economic is related to your financial condition. So you have the right to earn a decent living. You have a right to be equally treated. You have social rights, and then you have the freedom of religion. You can adopt any religion and you can practice it. There would be no restriction or no constraint on you. So all these rights are there, but in return you are obligated to obey the law. Whatever are the laws of the land, as I've said, are needed to be obeyed. Voting, this is a sensitive part, but in Canada, it's mandatory for us to vote. The thing there are different ways. They've made it very easy. We can vote. But here also it is important that you vote, because in a democratic order, because the government is for the people, of the people, and by the people, then it is you are the people. Since you are the people, then obviously your vote, that's a different thing. Stalin had said probably that is, it is not the one who casts the vote, but the one who counts the vote. That person matters, because that's how the governments are made. But again, I know it's a sensitive issue, but voting is your responsibility. Then paying taxes. Paying taxes, because that's how the social infrastructure is made. The roads are constructed, dams are constructed. Um, um, Again, all this, the water system, water comes in your houses. That system is the electricity and everything. So all this civic amenities which you get are they come through your by paying taxes, because you pay to the revenue of the state. And then allegiance and loyalty to the state is extremely important. Right? So obviously treachery is not acceptable, it is not allowed, and in any society, in any culture, and you have to be loyal and faithful to the state. Social responsibilities include respecting the rights of the others, because if you have certain rights, then obviously the other person has also rights. So you have to respect, and you have to grant that space and concession to the other person. Even your family members, they have certain rights, so they have to be acknowledged and they have to be accorded. Protecting the environment, it's very important. We do not care about, I'm going to discuss this in subsequently. We are not concerned about water wastage, we are not concerned about cutting the trees, we are not concerned about climate change, we have hardly anything about the global warming, or this hot weather or whatever. So we are not aware of that, unfortunately, because of lack of exposure, lack of education, a lack of civic sense. We are not care about this environment factor. But across around the world, this issue is given due consideration and due importance. So contributing to the community, I am contributing to the community. So this is important. When you come into a state where you are in a position to contribute something towards the country, towards the state, then obviously to your community you have an obligation. But if you look around, you would find extremely dissatisfaction among in yourself as well as among the people of your country. Why? Right? So, but first of all, we discussed that what are those unhygienic or uncivilized practices which we are doing. We have unhygienic habits, okay, and we are not following cleanliness, although our religion has a very strict instructions on that, that you have to practice cleanliness, but we don't do this. Then we break the waiting lines. There are queue lines, but we break them. We have corrupt practices. We have to acknowledge this thing, that there is a corruption is rampant and prevalent in our society. Then fraud and scams. People are very much interested in get rich overnight, so they swindle and they fraud and they conduct fraud, and that's how they rob the other person of their valuables and their belongings. Uh, then we have a lack of tolerance and patience towards the others. You have seen that we have a habit of criticizing and gossiping, right? If we feel happy to undermine the other person. So these are all the bad traits which we have. So until unless we carry out an introspection and we look inward and we acknowledge and accept that we have certain flaws which need to be corrected. Remember, in the beginning, I had told you that we have certain blind areas. Those blind areas have to be looked into, and then they have to be rectified. So this lack of patience and tolerance towards other, criticism and gossiping, negative thoughts. We are always in depression. The negative thoughts, right? So why? Because oh नहीं अच्छा हमारे साथ तो अच्छा हो ही नहीं सकता, क्यों भी नहीं हो सकता, right? तो बुरी बात है. We have to believe, and we have to have a firm faith Then water wastage, I have told you, car washing, broken faucets, नलके टूटे हुए होते हैं, पानी बह रहा होता है. So all these things are negligence basically. Then traffic rush, obviously, the roads could not be constructed, and the density of the traffic is increasing day by day. So we are caught up in a traffic. So instead of making straight lines, we try to cross over another, and then there we are stuck into a traffic jam, and then through what we could go through in 15 minutes, we take hours and hours to take time. Then there is a black and hidden economy, smuggling, and underhand dealing, and so many things. Undocumented economy is one of those things. So we have to accept that thing, that all these evils are present in our society, and the government is also aware of that thing. But the government looks the other way, because that's how they say that at least they are not obliged to look after all these issues, and then people are doing underhand practices. Factories are throwing their waste material into the nalas and rivers. So as I told you, that the fresh water or the sweet water is a scarce resource these days. It's very important that we preserve freshwater reservoirs, and the glaciers are melting, and this is a sweet water which is getting scarce, very limited in amount. I give you an example of Canada. You see, we have. I am in a habit. I'm not praising myself, but I'm in a habit of feeding the birds. But then when I went to Canada and I tried to feed the bird, they told me, no, 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 it's not allowed. I said, why? They said that you will get a ticket from the municipal corporation, municipal government, that you are not allowed to feed the birds. Because what happens when you feed the birds pollute the area. They do the area, they dirty the area. So you are not allowed to feed the birds. But again, from Canada, I learned that everyone is responsible for his own cleanliness and the area around him. So even if you are working in an office environment, then the person is responsible for their own garbage collection and garbage disposal. You have your garbage, you throw it in a joint area. At the end of the day, you are responsible. So when I became the campus head, that children, small little children, they throw away the chips wrappers, or after drinking their juice and everything. So I stopped them. I said that everyone is responsible to throw it in a certain place. So the parents were upset. They said, why are you forcing our children to do that? Because nobody has taught them. They say that somebody would come and somebody is going to do that. That's another aspect of economy. That when somebody else does this job, then that person gets paid. He gets a salary. His kitchen runs on that. That's a separate thing. But as responsible citizens of this country, it is your responsibility to put the garbage at a certain place and not to throw it everywhere or on the streets. Now understand, as I said, that civilizations evolve. We as a society, as a population, we could not evolve since our birth in 1947. We have become a crowd of a people, a hajum, in which everyone is trying to race ahead, and we do not know where we are heading. Right? We do not know our destination. We just want to rush and cut the lines, cut the corners, and cut the lines, and to reach somewhere. I do not know where. We have a misplaced concept of nationalism. You see, when this nation-state system was born, that nations, communities who have the same language, who have the same customs and culture and ethos, they are formed in a geographic area and they form a state, right? But then they evolve. They evolve through years and years of living. Unfortunately, because of our political problems, we could not evolve as a state. So we have so much of societal problems, which I had mentioned in the previous episode. Then we have an identity problem. If you look around and you ask people that, are you Pakistani or are you a Muslim? So he would say that I'm a Muslim, because then instead of associating yourself with this Indus Valley civilization or South Asia, which actually you should, right? You try to associate yourself with the Arabs, right? Because of the religion aspect, and you say that you belong to that community. That is another factor. That is again another identity. But your primary identity is associated with the law of the land, and that is where your forefathers have lived. I tell you, I was involved in a talk show debate with an Indian when I was in Canada. So he said that, Dan Sahab, you at one stage you were also a Hindu, and I was stunned. How could I be a Hindu sometime? But then when I thought it over, that point was very valid, because what happened, that that's the religion of Islam was introduced in this South Asia when Muhammad bin Qasim had come in 711 AD, right? Before that, everyone was Buddhist or Hindu. So if you go back in your lineage, and your forefathers or great grandparent, then you would find that they had a certain religion. They belong to a certain different faith and religion. So you have to understand this thing, right? So you have to associate yourself with the land. You have other identities, and that have to be honored and they have to be acknowledged. But again, try to balance them out. Then, unfortunately, we have all these issues are because of our artificial curbs on our thinking. The history which was taught in the school was distorted. President Ayub Khan was secular. He had an open mind, and then when Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto came, he had introduced Islamic socialism. Now, socialism is altogether a different kind of a thing that he associated just for his own popularity. He introduced a slogan of Islamic socialism, which was misplaced. And then President General Ziaul Haq came. He was a Maulvi type, and then he had introduced all the evils in this society, because he had introduced the fundamentalist or extremist form of religion in this. And if you go and listen to my YouTube lectures on radicalization, you would see that this is because these people, right from the childhood or in the madrasas, they have been taught a different, a twisted form of religion. So when they grow up, they are fanatic. When they are fanatic, then they practice those things. They try to implement it. They try to force the other people to follow their version of the religion, which is not permitted, and which is not part of our religion. So this is important. Then when General Musharraf came, he took the bandwagon towards the moderate enlightenment, right? So he had opened up the floodgate of media, electronic media, and all kinds of material or stuff from the Western culture was coming to our country. So what happened? That two things happened. So half of the population, they became westernized, ultra westernized, and the half of the population, they were scared, because they wanted to protect their families and their identity and their culture. So they regressed, and then they adopted this religion more and more, and that's how the hijab and everything came in this society. And then we, instead of evolving or becoming progressive, we regressed towards to the backside. So alienation with the governance system. This we had talked in the last episode, that you are rightfully alienated from the governance system. And you are not the only one. In the Arab Spring 2011, Arab Spring 2019, and this Gen Z revolutions which are taking place around the world, they are all alienated from the governance system. They would like to change, and it is their legitimate right to get these things changed. Unfortunately, it is difficult in the present day, because anybody who is sitting in power, he would not allow to relinquish. He would not be interested in relinquishing his power, so he would hold it. And for that, he would use coercive measures. He would put penalties on you. He would use force on you. So you would not be allowed to do that. Gen Z protest movements, I told you, they started from Philippines, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, toppled the governments, Nepal, then went to Madagascar and other things. So then you, as I mentioned in the last episode, we have an elite culture. We have an elite culture syndrome, which is undermining, which is damaging this nation state very much, because these people who are filthy rich, you see in the television dramas, you see around them, in they're traveling in their SUVs. They do not follow the law. They have all kinds of protection. They have their own security guards. So they have a different lifestyle, and they are allowed to foul the law because of their money. So what has happened? So they have a lack of commitment to with the country, and that is what I said. You have to understand, when I talked about the land reform, a person who has thousands and thousands of acres of land, his need is would be fulfilled with little bit, but then the rest one is goes into wastage. So unless his or their lands are divided equally and given to the poor haris, those tillers who cultivate the land, so and they would be interested in from to harvest the crop from every inch of the land. So how the productivity would increase, how the harvest would increase. So this is extreme. So these our problem is the Jagirdarana system, or this feudal landlord system. Until unless that is corrected, that is changed, I give you an assurance the state of the country would never be changed. And I tell you, books and books have been written. I have recently saw the book of Dr. Ishrat Hussain, what is wrong with the country, or something like that. Governing the ungovernable. That was the title of the book. But he never mentioned about the land reforms. He didn't mention about that the people who are feudal landlords, they are having thousands and thousands of acres of land, which are untaxable. They give a little bit of taxes, and rest everything goes into their pocket. So how would this country would flourish? It's not allowed. So when the intellectuals are not sincere, and or they are frightful to mention these things, then obviously there is no chance of this country to stand on its own feet. So we are limping ahead. All the books, international books are written. They say Pakistan is muddling through. Muddling through is neither here nor here, just passing every day, surviving. That shouldn't be the case. So lack of commitment comes from the elite culture. So again, we have seen the government functionaries. I was in there was a time when 2011 or 12, when there was a lot of load shedding. So I had come from Canada, so my family is in the government. So I was attending a dinner party, and so I met a functionary, a wife, and I said that we are having a lot of load shedding. After every hour, the electricity goes away. So she was surprised, and she looked towards her husband and said, "Our light doesn't go." Oh, never mind. We have a government area, and that from there there is no load shedding. So understand, the person who is responsible to make the policy of this electricity or everything, his home is given electricity or light 24 hours, so he cannot feel the problem, which an ordinary family, a poor family, and their children, who have to write a test tomorrow or attend an exam next day, or go to work the next day, they're surviving. So this is the dichotomy which our country faces. People who are at the helm of the affairs, they have hardly any understanding. And look at these people who are sitting in the parliament. Are they your real representatives? Do you think that these people who are sitting in the legislative assemblies in the provinces or in the center, uh, they are aware of your everyday problems? I don't think so. So when you are disconnected from there, what type of democracy is there, right? So you have to understand. So So when people see no return from what they contribute to the society, to the government, when they see there is no return on the services, they feel alienated, right? So antagonistic is a word which we say, mutanafir ho jana. Okay, yaar, ye kya tarika hai? So this is not good. So you have to understand this thing. So this is why everyone is dissatisfied and disgruntled. The right word is disgruntled with the whole system, and unfortunately, they're getting disgruntled with the country as well. So obviously, there are no proper hospitals or health facilities. There is no control on inflation or the price hike, which is getting every day. No education is available for the poor, no standardized education. Elite schools are there, and I have seen an elite school as well. Hardly any quality education is given to them, and you are not allowed. As a principal, I was not allowed by the management to fail any student. The kids used to give blank papers, and the teachers used to fill up those papers. So with this kind of an education, so I had to resign. That was certainly not acceptable. So, but this system is rife. Elite schools, just they are getting tuition fee, and they are promoting you. They are giving your children prizes, first prize, second prize, third prize, because all they are interested is in their tuition fee, in their money. They are not bothered about the future of your child. So this is the dilemma of this country, and I feel very frustrated and angry, right? No welfare for the destitute. We have the biggest system of charity in the world after Indonesia. Indonesia has one of the largest because the population is high, and we have the second system. Why? Because the government is not feeling responsibility towards the poor people. So the people who are affluent or rich, they give, or even middle class, they attend to the charity aspect for the welfare or the well-being of the poor. So what happens? People cut corners. Right? You would be having grievance. Why people are cutting corners? So all these things when happen in your society around you, so people tend to cut corner, and that is known as the tragedy of commons. Tragedy of commons. Now, tragedy of common is a philosophical framework or a theory. So, commons is basically the common people, the masses, the population. Okay. So now what happens? I told you in the last episode about the scarcity of resources. The resources around us, everything around us is scarce, is less in number. So when there are more people and the resources are less, so everyone is struggling to have them, right? So what happens? That whatever is available, that also gets diminished or finished. So that is the tragedy of the commons, right? So this is a overuse of a shared resource. Is an economic theory or the ecological concept of the theory of commons, acting, because you see, as a human being, we are always acting in our own self-interest, because, and that I'll tell you, there was a Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of, there was a pyramid. It is taught in human resource management. There is a hierarchy of needs. So there are 5 levels. First of all, is your food for your survival, food and shelter. Then when you become this thing, then you start thinking about other things, about your love and affection, and then the final one is self-actualization. We'll talk about that one also. So what happens that everyone is interested in their own interests. Mujhe mil jaye, right? So what happens that when mujhe mil jaye, with this theory, then the resource which is already scarce in quantity, that becomes overused, and then it gets eliminated altogether. So depleting and degrading of the resources is the tragedy of the commons. This was introduced by ecologist Garrett Hardin in 1968. It is the conflict between individual gain and collective sustainability. Because if I gain everything, and that is the part of our elite culture, I gain everything, then the masses, they are left with nothing. So this is what happens. So it is the key characteristics of tragedy of commons is shared resources, the common resources which you have, and then individual benefit. Individual is thinking about his or her own benefit, and then there are costs, because when the resources are finished, then there are costs involved into this, and then inevitable ruin. Everything is finished. When everything is finished, because if somebody, people are grabbing it more and more, you see, if certain product, vegetables, they they're coming into the market less in number, so the price would go high. This is the principle of economics. So prices would go high, and more people who can afford it, they would buy it more in number, because it's getting finished. So many people would be left behind without any vegetables. That is the tragedy of the commons. So they give an example of a pasture in which there is a herd. Every there are animals. They are multiplying. People are using them for milk. They are using them for slaughter. But again, if there is a pasture which is a common area for the grazing of the herd, that gets finished, then obviously the animals would go extinct also. And so people have to take rational decisions. Until unless you take a rational decision of sharing everything with in a limited quantity, then you can enjoy it, and then that resource is going to last for a number of days or number of years and for the lifetime. But again, if you grab everything, that is the tragedy of the commons. Um, so all these things. So again, depletion of the groundwater. We have talked about. We have talked about that. How we are breaking the lines. We are wasting water, the precious water. When our tanks in our houses, they get filled, and then we just don't put off the switch off the water motor, and then the water gets wasted. So all these things, this is the basic problem with our culture, with our society, basically, not with the culture, with our society. As I said, that we have a degenerating society. But again, until unless you carry out an introspection, you cannot rectify or correct your course of action. When I was a pilot, I used to fly from one city to another. So what used to happen, that if the wind is coming from the other side, I used to fly a small airplane. So the wind is coming from a side. So I'm going towards from A to B, but then my direction is my heading begins to go towards destination C. I am not involuntarily. I am thinking that I'm going from A to B. I'm going to B, but my direction is towards C. So that is why they say that you rectify, you can make a course correction. That's the same thing. Principle is applied in ships as well, in sailing. That because of the water current, your direction gets changed, so you make a course correction. So the same principle applies to the societies. We have to carry out a course correction, but that is only possible that if we realize it, make a realization that there is a room for improvement. There is something fundamentally faulty with this society, and then obviously those people, then we can try to, in a democratic way, in a decent way, we can force the government or the people in power to realize their responsibility, and then make this country sustainable. Otherwise, this country is not going to be sustained. So again, today we talked about the civic duties and rights and responsibilities. We'll keep discussing in due course about various other aspects which you should be attending as young university students or young professionals in starting your career. So thank you very much. Grant leave to Adnan Qaiser, and we'll come again to discuss new aspects. Hopefully, you're getting something from this lecture. And as I said, if you get 10% from all these lectures, and understand the concept, the basic problems which I am identifying, and I am very careful because criticism, authorities do not like criticism. But again, I'm very respectfully, I'm trying to identify all those issues, because then when you understand that what are the flaws afflicting the society, then tomorrow when you are in this position, you would be able to carry out the course correction. Thank you very much. Look after yourself, and Khuda Hafiz from Adnan Qaiser. All the best. God be with you.